All right. So today we will continue working on the speaking section. We'll continue working on the same task actually. Um, so let's see. Okay, remember what we were saying for this question, right? The structure is pretty simple. You just get the question. You get 15 seconds to prepare, 45 seconds to speak. The questions are always going to be closed, which means that you only have two possible options, two possible ways to answer these questions. And as for the topics, I wanted to start there. These are the most common topics that you guys can have in the questions for this task. Sorry. Do I make this? Okay, I'm sorry for that. So these are the topics that you have in this question. So as you can see on this little pie here, most of the time you will get questions about work life, about education, about relationships, about recreation, travel, so things related to having fun and stuff, lifestyle and health, so getting in shape, diets, like that type of thing. And a smaller percentage of the time you will have things related to technology, related to finance decisions, simple finance decisions, so things like saving or how how to spend your money, environment and global issues. And sometimes, very rarely though, you have social and political issues, but those are not really like difficult questions as you imagine, right? Those are simple questions related to some social issues, like maybe violence, maybe crime, I don't know. Yes. Do you guys have any questions about this so far? You can please give me a second. Okay. Now, how is this important? Like, why am I telling you this? The reason is that since you will be seeing a lot of questions about these topics, then you better be ready and better be prepared. And it is necessary that you guys have some vocabulary and some expressions to talk properly about these things, about these topics, right? So let's say we're talking about education, maybe we're talking about university life. So you do need to have some knowledge about how university life is in the US, because remember that this is an American exam, right? So they are going to be using some terms, maybe some words that you are not familiar with because they are not used in Spanish, right? Maybe they will use the word dorms for dormitories, right? So that's something that we don't have here. So you need to have the vocabulary, right? Maybe something related um, to work life. So for example, you need to have uh, expressions related to that topic, right? Maybe like coworkers, colleagues, working environment. So those expressions are important. Same thing for all of the topics, right? When talking about relationships, the same thing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send you guys a document that I have, a word list with some vocabulary and some expressions for those topics. Okay, so let me share this with you. Okay, so this is it. This is the document I was telling you about. And by the way, this will be useful for both the speaking and the writing sections of this test. Okay, so let me show you a little bit. Right. So here you will find some expressions related to education, work, relationships, business, technology, health, and the environment. Okay, so let's say in education, you have a few expressions and a few examples. Like, for example, the first one, to attend classes, right? Instead of saying going to classes, you can say attending classes, which is maybe more appropriate. I don't know. Same thing when it comes to work. So to apply for a job, right? That's an expression that you guys need to have. I don't know, a full-time job, a part-time job, manual work. Same thing for relationships, right? To grow apart, to fall in love, to get along well with somebody else. For business, right? A startup, a brand, a CEO, shareholders, business owners. Same thing for technology and for health and the environment too. Okay. So these are things, these are some expressions that you guys need to have, and you need to try to use them as well in your speech. Okay, so I'm sending you guys the link to this document. Okay. Do you guys have any questions about that?
Andrea, is it possible that maybe you can share that link also in the WhatsApp?
Yes, of course, sure. And after class.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, any other question? All right. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna practice. But before we practice, I just wanted you to show you guys, or I just wanted you to hear two sample responses of two different questions and how somebody scored had a perfect score, a level 4 score for both questions using different structures. So that you actually see that it doesn't really matter which one you go for. If you have one or two, reasons or examples, you guys will see. Okay, so let's just listen to these two sample responses and then we practice. So the first one here is for this question. Camila, could you please read the question we have?
Okay, do you agree or disagree with the following sentence? We can learn a lot from making mistakes.
Okay, good. So let's hear the sample response. Let's hear how somebody answered this question. Of course, this will be almost perfect. Maybe this person won't make any pauses, won't hesitate a little bit. It's normal that you have some pauses when speaking. It's normal that you make some mistakes. That's totally fine, right? But what I want you to look at is the structure, the elements in this response, okay? Not necessarily the delivery too much. Don't worry about it. So let's see.
I totally agree that we can learn a lot from making mistakes. First of all, we always remember how our past mistakes made us feel, and since they usually make us feel really terrible, we try to avoid repeating them so we don't feel that way again. We also take deliberate action to avoid it. For instance, last year before my big science midterm, I made the mistake of playing video games all day long. As a result, of course, I failed the test and I felt miserable. But I learned from that it's very important to study and to prepare for tests. So the next year, during exam season, I buckled down, I studied, and I learned a lot.
Okay. So what do you guys think of that response? Like based on the things we talked about yesterday based on the rubrics they used to evaluate the responses? What do you think about it? Is there anything you would change? Is there anything that caught your attention that maybe you would like to highlight? Any thoughts? Okay, well, let's analyze a little bit what the transcript says. Here's the transcript of what we just heard. Okay, so first of all, in terms of the structure, it has the structure that we were using yesterday, right? We have the introduction where this person expresses his opinion. So he agrees that we can learn a lot from making mistakes. And he's starting in the same way that I told you to, right? So in this case, the question is agree or disagree. So he's using the same verb, I agree. And he's adding an adverb, which makes it even stronger. And then he actually mentions what the statement is, right? He's not just saying I totally agree, but he's saying I agree that we can do this. By the way, this is just copying and pasting from the question, right? Remember that when you're speaking, you will have the question on your screen, so you can always read that part. Now, another thing that I wanted to highlight as well is the way that he's using transition words and something that you want to use as well. So aside from the for instance, to give the example, he uses more to connect ideas, right? Cause and effect, and he says as a result, nevertheless, that's. Try to use those transitions. How do you become used to using them? By practicing. I know it's a little bit odd because when speaking normally, we don't really use them, right? We just use because, so, and, but. But, I just said but, when you guys are practicing, try to start first by learning how to use them, and then try to correct yourself as you go. So every time you say but, even if you repeat, try to correct yourself and use a synonym. So maybe you can say nevertheless. Every time that you say so, change that for thus, therefore, I don't know. Okay, because it is important that you guys use these transitions. Now, if we look at the structure itself, he has a reason and an example. And that's it, right? He doesn't have more than one reason because he doesn't need to have more than one reason. And if you look at the vocabulary, the quickest way to really expand your vocabulary is by learning some synonyms to the most common adjectives, right? So learn some synonyms for good, bad, important, ugly, pretty, short, long, right? I don't know, tiring. Try to learn some synonyms for those common adjectives so that you don't use the basic one, right? So for example, in this case, he's not saying our mistakes make us feel bad, right? He's saying make us feel terrible, make us feel miserable. So he has some good adjectives to use in his vocabulary, right? And another final thing, and this is something that I wanted to also tell you guys yesterday. When you give personal examples, when you talk about specific experiences, make sure that your examples contain three things. Context, so you need to tell me when and where this happened. In this case, he has the context, right? Last year before my big science midterm. Then, aside from the context, you need to have the event, which obviously have to be related, which obviously have to be related to the topic, right? In this case, it's about making mistakes. So he's saying that he made a mistake and he's being specific, right? And then you have the events, and finally you need to have the resolution, which is related to your reason, okay? So he has his resolution of the example here, what he learned from the example from this specific experience, So those three elements should always be in your examples: context, the event, and the resolution. Okay? Another thing, he has good details in his example. So he's explaining what a specific mistake he made, what a specific exam he had, when this happened specifically. Try to always have those details in your examples. And finally, I promise this is the last thing, he has good grammar, right? Because look at how he's using different tenses, for example. He's using the past tense, the simple past, simple present. Maybe he could have used one conditional sentence. Maybe he could have used like a third conditional here, right? And said, if I hadn't made this mistake, I would have never learned, right? Maybe to just add the grammar there. But in general, he has all of those elements that we discussed yesterday, right? One tip I can give you, don't use, first of all, don't use any transition between the introduction and the reason if you guys will only give one example. Even if you will give, if you will only give one reason. And even if you will give two reasons, try not to have this transition there. Why? Because what happens is, when you say first of all, that means that there are more than that, right? There are more elements. You have to have a second, a third, maybe. But in this case, if he has only one, then it's better not to have this transition. And even if you're planning on having two reasons, it's always better not to have it, because what happens if you run out of time, right? So that would be the tip here. Is this okay? Do you guys have any questions about this one? All clear? Any questions? All right. So Luis Fernando, could you please read this question here?
Do you think it's a good idea for children to help their parents with household chores as soon as they are old enough? Use details and examples in your responses.
Okay, thanks, Luis. So same thing, we'll listen to another type of structure and see how this one goes.
I think it's a great idea for kids to do household chores as soon as they're old enough. First of all, this can teach children some really valuable skills that will come in handy later in life. For instance, I was responsible for cooking breakfast for my little brother every day before we went to school when we were both kids. As a result, when I went away to college as a teenager, I stayed really healthy because I could cook my own meals instead of always going out for fast food like my friends and classmates. Secondly, parents and children can do household chores together, and this gives them a chance to bond. You know, as they work on things like cleaning dishes or cooking food, they can chat, and the kids might open up about what's going on in their lives.
Okay. So what is the difference with that one and the previous one we heard? In this case, he had two reasons, right? So in this case, he had not only one reason, but two. And he only had one exam for the first reason. So this is another type of structure you guys can have. It all depends on how you manage your time. You know, it all depends on how much information you're given and in the speed in which you're giving that information. Right? But the idea is the same. Everything is the same as we already talked about. He has his introduction. He's using the same verb as in the question. Instead of saying a good idea, he's saying a great idea. Again, adjectives, right? Instead of saying a good idea, you could say it's a fantastic idea. It's an awesome idea. It's an incredible idea, right? So you can always use some synonyms for the adjectives. He has his reason, a short and concise reason. He has his example. Same thing, right? the context, the event, and finally the resolution. So, what do you guys think now? Do you have any questions before we start practicing? Everything clear? Okay, perfect. So, let's start by doing this question. It says, imagine you're looking for a new place to live near your university. You have two choices. The first place is in a house, which you would share with several other students. The second place is a small apartment, which you would not have to share with others. Which would you choose and explain why? You will now have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. So who wants to go first? Does anybody want to try?
I could try.
Okay, great. Please go ahead.
I would definitely say that it's better to live in a small apartment alone. Since you have silence to study and think and do whatever you do without annoying others. For instance, I I visit my friend yesterday in his house, which is shared with other students, and there was a lot of noise and a lot of disorder, and I don't like this.
Okay, good. Perfect. So I loved the structure. You had your introduction first. You had a good reason and it was short. You didn't over explain it. So yeah, it's better to have silence for studying and without annoying others. And a good example as well. Maybe just make sure that your example is always related to your reason, right? Your reason that you're saying that it's a better place to study, right? To concentrate because it's more quiet. So make sure that your example is ready. So your example, you were also talking about how you saw that there was that it was a mess, right? That it wasn't an ordered house. But that's not related to your reason, which is about it being like more quiet for you to study. So that would be the only tip. Another thing, careful with the pronunciation of the word seems, right? Remember, it's seems, not science. Because if you say science, it looks like you're saying science from ciencia, and it's not the same. But you can always change it for a synonym. If you don't like it, you can say for, as, I don't know, due to the fact that, okay? But it was a good response. Thank you so much, Becky. Okay, guys. So in this case, same thing, your introductions. If the question is which would you choose, you could say, I would choose the first place or the second place, I don't know. You can always use a conditional as well, and that's good for grammar too. Right? You could say, if I had the chance to choose, I would go for I don't know, for the small apartment. Okay, guys, so let's do this other one. It says, some college students choose to prepare for careers where there are more job opportunities. Others choose to study subjects that interest them, regardless of job opportunities. Which do you think is better and why? You will now have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. All right, so who wants to try this time? Anyone? Should I pick? Maybe Sophia? Do you want to go?
Okay.
Okay, please go ahead.
I think it's better to choose a subject that I am interested to, regardless of the job opportunity. Since when you start to have a job, you are more likely to enjoy it, the the things you love. For instance, last summer I met an art teacher, and the time's over.
Okay. So no problem. It was your first try. Don't worry about it. So you have to know yourself. Now, in this case, maybe you're speaking a little bit slower, but it's okay. You know, I think slow is fine because it allows you not to make too many grammar mistakes. But try to save some time in certain things. For instance, your introduction, right? You spent 15 seconds there, and it should have been half of that time. So how do you do that? Practice always answering these questions. What do you think is better? I think, and then try to always shorten a little bit the option, right? In this case, you said, I think it's better to choose to study a subject that interests you, regardless of job opportunities. So summarize or paraphrase it a little bit. You can say, I think it's better to study what you like, right? It's the same at the end of the day. They will know that you're choosing the second option. Or you can say the same, but without including everything. I think it's better to study what interests you, right? So try to summarize it so that you don't spend too much time in your introduction. Have always a shorter reason, right? Since you will enjoy your work, you will enjoy your job more. And then that will give you more time for your exam. Okay? That'll be the only thing. Is it okay? Any questions so far? All right. So next question here says, a university wants to require all students to have their own laptop computers. Do you agree or disagree with this policy? Give specific reasons to support your opinion. You will now have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. So maybe Alejandra, do you want to try now?
Yes. Well, I totally disagree with that policy, since not everybody can afford a laptop for their own. For instance, when I was at university, I was taking a class with different students from different with different kind of living. So for some of us, it was easier to take all the classes, but they couldn't because they didn't have all the mediums. Sorry.
Okay. All right, good. Great introduction, great reason. You were getting stuck a little bit in your example, but I like the fact that you were able to continue with it. And you went through with it. So I don't really have any comments. It's just a matter of practice for you to get used to improvising those examples. Maybe always make sure that you give some more details, right? That is something that is like the tip I can give. So you were saying that when you were in university, you were taking a class. Maybe tell me which class. We're talking about using laptop computers. Maybe you can say, I was taking a design class, right? Maybe, I don't know. And maybe I think what you meant, I had classmates from different backgrounds, right? Different backgrounds. So maybe some of them couldn't afford it, and some of them could.
Yes.
So Anita. Well done, though. Thank you. Another. All right. This one here says, imagine that you must decide between two homes to live in. One place is very large and brand new, but it is very far from work or university. The second is very small and old, but you would be able to get to work or university in less than 5 minutes. Which place would you prefer to live in? Explain why. You will now have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. So maybe, Miguel, do you want to try?
Okay. Okay. I would prefer to live in a large brand new place instead of a place that is small and old. One of the main reasons is because I prefer to live very comfortable, and since I was living in a place that is comfortable for me nowadays. Furthermore, I have no problems if I can arrive, if I cannot arrive to my work in less than 5 minutes. So it's okay for me.
Okay. All right, yeah, thanks. Good. So what I would tell you, first, save more time. Remember, you only have 45 seconds, and you took too long in just giving your introduction and your reason. So your introduction was 15 seconds. Try to make it 7, right? So you said in this case, I would prefer, great. You're using the same verb with the same model because this is an imaginary situation. So I would prefer to live in the large and brand new place, right? So that would be enough. Don't tell me instead of the other small and old place, okay, or a small and old home. So summarize it. Always make it as fast and as short as you can. You can even say, I would prefer to live in the first place or in the first option, because then it'll be kind of self-explanatory, right? But find a way to make it shorter. And also, and this is in terms of the content, make sure that you are always going to the bottom of it. So you haven't really explained to me why. So you said that you like, or that you prefer to live in comfortable places, but I think that is the same as what your opinion is, right? That's what you're saying. You would prefer this place because it's comfortable. But why? I think at the end you were kind of saying that you have no problems in taking maybe longer to get to work or university. Maybe you can explore that idea a little bit more and say why, right? You can say, since I don't know, I wake up very early anyways, maybe, I don't know. And then you can talk about your routine, what time you wake up, what time you get to work, or you can say that you're used to spending at least 30 minutes in traffic. I don't know. Okay, but always make sure that you go deeper and that you don't forget to give your examples, right, with the specific details. Tell me about a time where you lived maybe in a small and old place and how uncomfortable that was. Okay, that's what I would say. Is that okay? Do you have questions? All right. So moving on, we have this one here. Well, before we move on, and this is related to coming up with the reasons. One tip I can also give you guys, and this is especially for those of you who struggle a little bit in like thinking of the reasons and coming up with ideas, try to have a reason sheet. What is a reason sheet? Try to just have a piece of paper or a notebook, and every time that you guys practice these questions, you will see that the questions are about the same topics, right? Work, university, technology, and so forth. So most of the time, you will see that you can use one reason for more than one question. So when you have one of those reasons, when you're thinking of those reasons, try to write them down. And you will see that once you write them down and once you use that reason more than once, then when you get to the real test and you get the question, you will have those options, right? And it will be like something that you'll naturally do. So in this case, for example, this is my reason sheet. Most of the time I've seen that you can answer most questions with 5 different reasons. So you can say that something is more efficient because you save time, because you save money, because you save energy, you save effort. So for example, in the previous question, we could have said, well, I would prefer to live in the small and old place since I would get to save a lot of money in transport, right? So you would say saving money. You save money in transport since it's only 5 minutes away. And that's something very easy to illustrate, right? You can say, for instance, when I went to university, I used to live 30 minutes away from my university, which meant that every day I would spend at least $3 on transport. If we add up, I don't know, the amount that I ended up spending in my entire, I don't know, in my entire program, then it's money that I could have used in this other place. So it is something easy to illustrate, right? Same thing for other questions, you can always talk about safety. Something is healthier, something is less risky. With something you have less risk of accidents. You can always talk about productivity, like in the previous question about living alone or sharing an apartment. This is the reason we used, right? You can concentrate better because it's a quieter place. You can always talk about learning. So when you gain more experience, you gain expertise, you develop the skills, so forth. And you can, if this is like your last resource, if you really don't know what to say, you can always talk about something, the experience of something being better, right? So I'm gonna share with you guys this document too, but make sure that you create your own reason sheet. Because if you just have this one, then it kind of doesn't make too much sense, right? You need to try to practice, and when you think of reasons, you write them down. Okay, I'm gonna share this with you guys anyways. Do you have any questions about this? Okay. All right, so let's continue. Let's do this one here now. The question says, some people think that modern technology has made people's lives simpler. Others believe it has made people's lives more complicated. Which point of view do you agree with and explain why? You'll now have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so maybe Paula?
Okay, I agree with the first point because it actually made people's lives simpler. And for example, like sending a message, it was hard to send a message before because you had to write a letter and go to the mail office, and then send it to the person. But now you have to just tap your phone and write the message and send it like in seconds. So it's a lot of it's a simpler. I think. That is
Okay, great, Paula. Thank you so much. So I really liked your response, honestly. Some tips I can give you. First, careful with your introductions, right? Remember, with the verb agree and disagree, it's a normal verb, just like the verb think, the verb make, take, do, eat, sing, all of those. So you cannot mix it with the verb to be. You cannot say I am agree, right? It's just I agree. Now, in this case, you said, I agree that technology has made people's lives simpler, right? Try to always use that structure. I agree that technology has made people's lives simpler. Why? Because, like, for example, you said, I agree with the first statement because technology has made people's lives simpler. But if you think about it, it's not that you agree with the first statement because it has made people's lives simpler. Because when you say that you agree, you're already saying that it has made people's lives simpler, right? It would be like saying, I agree that technology has made people's lives simpler because it has made people's lives simpler. So try not to say, I agree with this statement because, and then repeat the statement. Because it's, it is a little bit, it's not the correct way, right? It's redundant in a way. So it's better always to say that I agree that modern technology has made our lives simpler. And then you had a great reason. Try to always say it though. So you could say, since it has improved the way we communicate, right? Or since it has made our communication easier, maybe. And then you have your example of sending a message, right? Sending a text message versus how it was in the past. A great comparison, I'd say. So no comments on that. And finally, if you get some extra time, if you have 10, 15, 20 seconds, try to add one more reason, especially if you have more than 15 seconds. Try to give me furthermore. Technology has also improved education, let's say. That's it. That would be great. And if you still have some more time, go with a conclusion, right? Tell me. I don't know. These are the main reasons why I feel technology has made our lives easier. So that's what I would say. If you have extra time, you can go with another reason or a conclusion depending on the time you have, but try not to leave it there. Okay? So, is this okay? Do you guys have any questions? Yes, Tati?
Would it be correct if I made a conclusion and I only give one reason?
It would be okay, but depending on the time you have. So if you just give one reason and you have from 1 to 10 seconds, then yes, you can go with a conclusion. But if you have more than that, then you should try to give another reason because you have enough time to give another reason. And it is not such a good idea to spend, let's say, 15 seconds in a conclusion, considering that that will be 1/3 of your response, right? 15 seconds is 1/3 of your response. So you have to kind of think about that. Your conclusion shouldn't be 1/3 of your response. It can be a small portion of your response, but it cannot be so long. So if you have that time, then you should be giving another reason. But if you have less than 10 seconds, then yes, go ahead and give a conclusion. Okay, so it depends on the time you have. Is that okay? Did I answer your question? Okay, guys. So yeah, that's why your introductions and your conclusions can never be more than 8, even 10 seconds, but ideally 8 seconds. Because if it's more than that, then it's too long. I know that 10 seconds is nothing, right? But you gotta think 10 seconds out of 45, that's a lot, right? So it cannot be that long. Any other question? Guys? Now here we have, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Teachers should not be too friendly to their students. Use details and examples to explain your answer. You'll now have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. So who wants to try? Does anyone want to go?
Me.
Oh, great to hear. Go ahead, please.
Wait. Okay, so I'm strongly disagree with this statement since it's a better experience to have a friendly teacher than a not friendly teacher. As for instance, when you have a not friendly teacher, you're probably more scared to don't make mistakes, so you don't try new things and you don't learn new things either. I think that's my main reason.
Okay, good. So, nice. First tip. I mean, the structure was good. You had your intro, great reason, and I love the way you managed your time, by the way. So that's like an ideal way of managing your time because by the first 30 seconds, you're over with your reason. Then you have your example, and you use like 3 seconds for your conclusion. So great way of administering your time. Now, some tips I can give you for grammar in the beginning, carefully in your introduction. Remember, you don't say I am agreeing, right? You just say I strongly agree without the verb to be. So only that. And in your example, try to give more details, right? So you said the experience is better when you have a friendly teacher. Good. And in your example, you said, for example, if you have a teacher that's not friendly, then you will be scared to ask questions and you won't learn anything. But I think that's kind of the general idea. That's the reason, really, right? So that example, if it's an example, it wasn't related to your reason that the experience is better, right? In your example, you should talk about the experience being better, right? Not about learning, because in your example, you talked about learning, and in your reason, you talked about the experience. So what you could do is use the second for your reason, right? You could say, because it was a general idea, it wasn't a specific thing. So you can say, I strongly agree, since you get to learn more with friendly teachers. And then when you give examples, try to be specific. So for example, when I was in high school, when I was in, I don't know, in 11th grade in high school, I had a math teacher who was not friendly to us at all. He was very strict and he kept his boundaries. However, most students were afraid to even ask questions, right? And that's how you will explain what you explained before. So those would be my tips, right? Make sure that your reason and your example are related, and make sure that your example has details. Okay. So what do you guys think? Do you have any questions about what we did today? Everything's clear?
Yeah, thank you, Andrea.
Okay, guys.
Great practice.
So today we have to actually fill out 2 surveys. So please, I'm sending you guys the first. Don't go yet. Once you're done with this one, I'll be sending the other one out, so you can also complete that.
Andrea, I have a question. Is there a site or a book where we can find these kind of examples for the questions so we can prepare ourselves?
Great question. Actually, well, you will find a lot of websites online. I'm gonna send you guys a link. There's one here that contains 90 practice topics. So I'm sending you guys a link, but I forgot something. I'm gonna give you guys access to Magoosh. I don't know if you guys have heard of Magoosh, but it's a website, a platform where you can practice like TOEFL questions in general, all of the sections in the TOEFL test. So right now after class, like maybe 15 minutes because I have a call, I'm gonna send you guys the username and password as well as the link, so you can practice using that website as well. Okay, guys. And if you have questions on how to use the website, you can write me in the group chat, and I'll be happy to answer those questions. Okay, but I'll be sending you the link and the username and password, so you can enter with the account we have. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other question?
Andrea, we will meet again on Friday, right?
Yes, that's a good question as well. I don't think we're gonna be having class tomorrow because we have the holiday. So yes, I think we'll be seeing each other on Friday, and we'll be moving tomorrow's class to Monday, next Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Any other question? Okay, guys, so thank you so much. See you guys next class.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.